Sudan's paramilitary rapid forces carried out a drone attack on a military airbase and other facilities in the vicinity of Port Sudan airport. Now, the RSF has targeted power stations in army-controlled locations in central and northern Sudan for the past several months, but the strikes had not inflicted heavy casualties. The drone attack on Port Sudan indicates a major shift in the two-year conflict between the Sudanese army and the RSF. The eastern regions, which shelter a large number of displaced people, have so far avoided bombardment. The army has responded by beefing up its deployment around vital facilities in Port Sudan and has closed roads leading to the presidential palace and army command. In March, the army ousted the RSF from its last footholds in Khartoum, Sudan's capital, but the paramilitary RSF holds some areas in Omdurman, directly across the Nile River, and has consolidated its position in the West Sudan, splitting the nation into two rival zones.
Welcome to AfriFreedomChannel, where we bring you the stories that matter most but are often ignored. If you're new here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss important updates like this one. Disclaimer: this video is for informational and educational purposes only. We aim to provide balanced perspectives on global and African affairs, and we do not promote violence or hate of any kind. The war in Sudan has dragged on for over a year, yet mainstream outlets remain largely silent. Millions are displaced, thousands dead, and countless others facing starvation. Why is it that a conflict of this magnitude receives so little attention globally? Is it because the world powers benefit from Sudan?
They dropped a bomb. They dropped a bomb on the Western Sudan airport. Not a single word being said in the media. Not one media coverage. Not one headline have I seen yet. People stay silent, even black people. Black people, you should all be ashamed of yourselves. Maybe if we fought so hard for our own, we would be doing a lot better, wouldn't we? But no, here we are. But they dropped a bomb. Children, ya Jamana, children are suffering. Children are in the mix of all this. It's so hard for me to make videos. Like, I take this shit personally because I have a friend, unfortunately, that is having to live through this shit. I mean, he escaped, thank God, but the trauma that he has to live with, yeah, God. What do we know about trauma? I don't know, guys. I don't know. And nothing's working out. It's like as hard as I'm fighting, nothing's working out. People don't want to sign my petition. People don't want to support. People don't do nothing. My views are not going up. TikTok ain't even helping. It's shadow banning me. I'm just trying to do what's right to help people in need. So please, if you're watching this video, spread awareness about what's happening in Sudan. Because what's happening in Sudan is so fucking sad. I don't want to cry on camera. I'm not going to do that. But I tell y'all, if we don't do something, it's going to be some shit that we'll never be able to recover from. I promise y'all that. Because Sudan provides so much for the world takes Sudan for granted.
Sudan suffering. And should Africans continue to rely on outside media to tell their own stories? Recently, at least 22 people were killed in an airstrike carried out by Sudan's army in western Omdurman. Families are mourning, communities are shattered, and yet the global community reacts with silence. How many lives must be lost before the world acknowledges the true scale of this tragedy? Are Sudanese lives considered less valuable on the international stage? Meanwhile, Sudan's paramilitary force, the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, has escalated the conflict by launching its first-ever drone strike on Port Sudan. This marks a dangerous turning point in the war, showing that both sides are becoming more sophisticated and determined. But who is supplying the technology, the funding, and the weapons? Could it be that global powers are fueling this conflict behind the scenes for their own gain, while the people of Sudan pay the ultimate price?
Escalation in the almost 3-month-long power struggle between the army and the RSF parliamentary group. There's been an intensive global diplomatic push to find an end to the violence. The fighting has killed almost 1,000 civilians and displaced millions since.
This war is not just a Sudanese problem, it is an African problem and ultimately a human problem. If Sudan collapses further, what does that mean for the stability of neighboring countries? What lessons should Africa learn about unity, self-reliance, and the dangers of allowing foreign interests to exploit internal divisions? In conclusion, the silence around Sudan's war is louder than the bombs falling on its people. We must ask ourselves, if we, as Africans, don't raise our voices for Sudan, who will? The world may choose to ignore Sudan, but we cannot afford to. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions like this. And as always, never forget, the future belongs to those who refuse to stay silent.
This is for entertainment purposes only. Stories are jabba loading, so please, if you know you can't handle it, just keep scrolling. You know, there's a lot about Kenya that has been hidden from the people of Kenya. Because as long as we don't know who we are, then others can use the knowledge of who we are and our power, not only against us, but to rule the world. But we are in the season and the times when the ancient order is returning. And so the people must be made aware of who they really are. And there are those who will know, and there are those who will not accept, and so will not be part of the great revival and restoration that is about to occur or that is already occurring. As I've already told you before, family, Kenya actually stands for the nest of the Most High. Ken means nest, and Yah actually stands for Yahweh. And if you are a student of history, then you know that Yahweh was actually an ancient dragon. And so Kenya is the home to the ancient dragons. But a lot of you ain't even ready for that. You see, when the British Empire was expanding and when the so-called Queen Victoria sent her explorers around the world, they were not looking at it for spices and gold and all that. They were looking for magic and they were looking for power. And they found the greatest magic and the greatest power here in Kenya. And it led them to Mount Zion. It led them to Lake Victoria. That's why she named the lake after herself, where the ancient pyramids were. And when in 1884, when they actually met in Germany to carve out Africa, all she was interested in was Kenya, the nest of the Most High, or the nest of Yahweh, the ancient dragon. And it stretched all the way from Mount Zion or Mount Kirinyaga to the so-called Lake Victoria and even Kilimanjaro, which is an ancient tree of life, which they later, when they saw that we had started to awaken, they later took away Kilimanjaro and gave it to Tanzania in order to kind of cut and cripple the ancient pyramid, the ancient triangle. If you know, as I always say, you know. In fact, Wakanda, as I've told you many times, was a story about a hidden nation in Mount Kirinyaga. And the producers and directors and the entire cast is actually being sued and was cursed by the Agikoyo elders that live in Mount Kirinyaga, which is why you saw, what was that, the leader of Wakanda, the guy who died and everything? You've seen so many curses fall upon the cast members, but they were actually even being sued for taking the ancient rituals that still exist till today and putting them in a movie. And as I told you before, Wakanda was actually an energetic military operation to try and expose and break down the energetic barriers using the minds of the global black nation, the global melanated nation, to expose the real Wakanda in a bid to get the Ark of the Covenant that was brought here from ancient Egypt when our ancestors had to escape to these lands. But the story of Kenya is so much deeper, family, because this was the ancient Holy Land. And before the pharaohs became pharaohs, they used to come to Mount Kirinyaga to do their ancient rituals, like what we saw in the first Wakanda. Every pharaoh came here first because this was the real ancient lands. And now, as we return our memory, as we awaken to who we really are, all power is returning to us. That's why you're seeing Muzungu leaders from all over coming here and saying that the new world order will be decided in these lands. But they are hoping to recapture the alleged 16 pyramids that are here. And many of these pyramids are actually hills that the Vatican has built their churches on and that fuel the power that is centered in Rome today. That is why the last pope is named Leo, as a mirror to the Simba, the Lion of Judah, that is already very much here, that already has returned, family. Oh my God, there is so much more I could say about who Kenya is, the nest of the Most High, the nest of Yahweh, the ancient dragon. But let this serve as a key to your memory. Because if you know, and you will be awakened, and you will be enlightened, and you will be empowered to once again live in this paradise, in this Eden. And for those who don't know, who claim this is stories are job or whatever, they are not part of the ancient return, and that is fine. Awaken to your greatness, beloved Kenyans. There is so much of our story that is going to be rewritten in our generation. And all power that has been used to rule and control the world is returning now to this ancient empire, this ancient Eden, the nest of Yah, the home of the ancient dragons. What an exciting time to be alive. All praise to the ancient ones who have made this possible. It is what it is, and if you know, you know.